Hello, I'm Michael Tillinger, and we're standing on top of Northcliffe Hill on a crisp summer's morning, just shortly after a snap thunderstorm has passed and left the countryside beautifully wet and full of life. To the north of me, that way, is Pretoria, about 50 kilometers, the city of Pretoria. And to the northwest of me, that way, is what is known as the cradle of mankind, or cradle of humankind, where it was supposed to have all began several million years ago, in terms of an evolutionary chain reaction that brought us here to this point in time as a species. That's where the Sterkfontein caves are. That's where they discovered Ples, Mrs. Ples, now known as Ples, and Littlefoot, and various other hominid skulls and remains that gave anthropologists and archaeologists the indication and the idea that we are the final link in a slow evolutionary chain of hominids that brought us here as a species, Homo sapiens. But we have to ask ourselves the question, where do we really come from as a species? What do we really know about our human origins? Where did we suddenly appear from some 250,000 years ago in this place in southern Africa, what they know as what they call the cradle of humankind? Do we know everything there is to know? Because if we start looking at our genes and our DNA and start using the knowledge that scientists have given us, and we follow the clues, as the guys from CSI would say, if we follow the clues, we realize that the answers take us to a completely different place. For example, why is it that we use less DNA than any other species on this planet? In a chain of evolutionary reactions, we should be using more of our DNA than any other species and not have half as many genes as the chimpanzee. Why is it that we have 23 pairs of chromosomes and all the other hominids, including chimpanzee, have 24 pairs of chromosomes? And so it goes. How come our brain suddenly doubled in size when we turned Homo sapiens from Homo erectus? And so the questions go, and they do not have simple answers. If you ask any anthropologist as to how many evolutionary steps there are between Homo erectus, our so-called or imagined predecessor, and Homo sapien, or wise man, they will tell you anything between 20 and 50 evolutionary steps. So where are those evolutionary steps? Where is that evidence of hominids that evolved over millions of years to turn into us, Homo sapiens? And if man was created black, if the first man or Adam on earth was black, why is it that Adam evolved from a skin color that was arguably more resistant to the rays of the sun into this feeble little white skin that develops cancer when exposed to the sun? Questions like this make us really ponder our real existence, our real origins, and how we really arrived on this planet. The most fascinating aspect of who we are and where we come from as a species can be detected from studying and looking at our DNA and our genetics. And I really must admit that I find it difficult to come to any conclusion other than the only way we could have reached this point in time as a species, exploring the stars, landing on our neighboring planets, we would not be able to reach this place and this point in time as a species other than with the aid of genetic manipulation. The evidence is overwhelming and very compelling, and the more we discover in the field of science, genetics and astronomy and medicine, the more overwhelming and compelling this evidence becomes. The incredible obsession that man has displayed, our obsession with gold since the earliest of times, the fact that we practice slavery since the earliest of times, the fact that the winged serpent is the same symbol, or the so-called mythological god, that was the creator in all ancient civilizations and all ancient mythologies, including the hundreds and thousands of African mythologies that covered this continent from here all the way to the north, raise some very, very candid questions. And where do we get these answers? Where do we look for these answers? And I suggest we look as far and wide as we possibly can. We need to look in the field of science, in medicine, in history, in astronomy, in genetics. Find any kind of scientific area and look for clues in that area, and you'll find that the answers that you get are not what we have been taught by historians and by religious leaders. The area of religion is one of the most mysterious areas that we find answers in. And some of the historic writings on earth, now that we're starting to understand what they seemingly were saying, some of these answers and the information we get from historic religious and historic writings are absolutely staggering. If we look at 70,000-year-old cave paintings by Bushmen throughout, and the sand people of southern Africa that were presumably among the first humans that walked the earth, we find incredible information in some of this rock art and the rock paintings that they left behind. It is arguably the oldest human art and literature that was left for us to dissect and to analyze. And many, many thousands of years later came various other forms of writing and other scripts that we have not deciphered yet, until suddenly we stumble upon the Sumerian tablets and we discover what is probably the holy grail of human history and human anthropology and human archaeology, because from these Sumerian tablets we get incredible detailed stories that basically give us the entire Old Testament of the Bible, but in a much older version, on clay tablets that were discovered in the Near East, North Africa and the Middle East. So we compile all this information and we realize that we've reached this place in time by some strange sequence of events that we do not understand today. We can explore the stars. We're discovering new planets. As of today, while I'm talking to you, we have discovered 251 planets in the universe. And if this persists, by the year 2013, we would have discovered over 1 million planets in the universe. These are incredible achievements by the human race. And yet, despite all this technology and all this incredible know-how, we cannot answer the three fundamental questions. Who are we? Where do we come from, and why are we here as a species? Now I suggest we put aside all our differences, all what we believe we know, everything we've been taught by historians or told by your mother and your father and your religious leaders. Put it aside, put it away, because it holds no water anymore. We need to find answers in other areas. And this is where it becomes really interesting and really staggering. So, I'm posing these questions to you because I want you to start thinking about this deeply. If we do not know who we are, where we come from, and why we're here as a species, we are missing and lacking the foundation upon which we can build a future of knowledge and understanding. So I suggest we start looking and start accepting answers that we may have found absolutely unacceptable even a few years ago, and embracing these and seeing how these pieces of the puzzle fit together to give us a more cohesive story of our human ancestry and our human origins.